Welcome to a deep dive into the world of Silvio Berlusconi.
Silvio Berlusconi.
Yeah, flamboyant media scandal and, of course, Italian politics.
It's a name that evokes a lot of strong feelings.
Definitely. But how does a guy who starts out, like, singing on cruise ships end up as a four-time prime minister of Italy? Like, what?
That's quite the journey.
It is. So that's what we're going to try to figure out today.
Using his Wikipedia entry as our main source.
That's right. So, are you ready to dive in?
Let's do it. I think what's really interesting about Berlusconi's story is that it really is a journey through some of the most pivotal moments in recent Italian history.
Okay.
We're not just talking about a kind of colorful character here. His rise is really intertwined with like the evolution of media, the changing political landscape, and even social attitudes in Italy.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
You mentioned cruise ships.
Yeah.
But I also read that he was a vacuum cleaner salesman.
He was. Like, what?
It's true. It sounds like something out of a movie, right?
It really does. But it speaks to a certain charisma and salesmanship that he clearly had from a young age.
Yeah.
But this shift to real estate is where things start to get really interesting.
Okay.
So in 1961, at just 25 years old, he founds his construction company.
Wow.
And his very first land purchase was backed by a fiduzione from Banca Rossini.
Hold on. Affido-Ucine. You're going to have to translate for me here.
Of course. It's basically a financial guarantee.
Okay.
A way of vouching for someone's ability to repay a loan.
So like a cosigner.
Exactly like a cosigner with some serious clout.
Okay.
And here's the interesting part.
What's that?
His father worked at Banca Rossini.
Ah, okay. So maybe a little help from dad, some family connections.
It's certainly possible.
Yeah.
But even if he got a little bit of a leg up, you have to admit that his vision with that Edlord project was impressive.
Okay. Tell me more.
Think large-scale housing developments, but with a twist.
Okay.
He incorporated amenities like shopping centers,
Oh, wow.
green spaces, creating these self-sufficient communities.
So it wasn't just about, like, building apartments.
It wasn't. It was about creating a lifestyle.
Yeah, I can see that.
And this was post-war Italy,
Right.
a time of rapid urbanization. People were flocking to cities, and Berlusconi offered them a modern, comfortable way of life.
And it was obviously successful because you said he was appointed Cavaliere del Lavoro, Knight of Labor, in 1977.
He was.
For his success in construction.
A pretty big deal.
That's huge. Talk about ambition. But, wait, construction, this is just the beginning, right? I mean, this is the man who basically changed the face of Italian television.
Right. And this move is crucial to understanding everything that comes after.
Okay.
He starts with Telemilano, a small local cable channel.
Okay.
But Berlusconi, being Berlusconi, he quickly transforms it into Canale 5.
Canale 5.
The very first nationwide private television network in Italy.
Wow.
Directly challenging the state-run RAI's monopoly.
I bet that caused a lot of controversy.
It did. But Berlusconi was a master of navigating the system.
Yeah.
So there were questions about the legality of his national broadcasts.
Okay.
But then, Bettino Craxi, prime minister at the time and close friend of Berlusconi's,
Oh, here we go.
passes the Decreto Berlusconi.
Wait, hold on. A decree named after him.
That's right.
So a law just to legalize what he was doing. That's power.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's a prime example of how closely intertwined politics and media were becoming in Italy at this time.
Right.
And how skillfully Berlusconi operated within that space.
He was a master.
He was. He wasn't just bending the rules.
He was rewriting them?
He was rewriting the rules of the game.
Wow. And he didn't stop at Canale 5 either, right?
No, he didn't. He goes on to acquire Italia 1 and Rete 4, creating this massive media empire that rivaled RAI.
It's incredible. It's like a media takeover.
It was a power move, for sure.
Well, wasn't all this happening while his construction business was also booming?
Exactly. So this wasn't just about TV.
This is about a whole empire.
This is about building a cultural force.
So his Fininvest group, it had publishing, financial products, even AC Milan, right?
That's right. AC Milan, the iconic football club.
It's huge. So you've got this media titan.
Yeah.
But he doesn't stop there.
No, he doesn't.
This is where Berlusconi's ambition takes a turn towards politics.
Exactly.
But to really understand that shift, I think we need to go back to his relationship with Bettino Craxi and the Socialist Party.
It's a fascinating dynamic. Craxi was actually Barbara Berlusconi's godfather.
Mm?
Their families were very close.
Really?
And in 1992, Berlusconi even made a TV ad endorsing Craxi's government.
Ah.
And this is right before the Tangentopoli scandals erupt,
Right.
which exposed that widespread corruption in the Italian political system.
Yeah, so did Berlusconi know about the corruption? I mean, was he turning a blind eye?
Well, that's a question historians are still debating to this day.
I bet.
What we do know is that he remained publicly supportive of Craxi, even as the scandal was unfolding.
So it seems like he was very loyal to his friends and allies.
He was.
Which might come back to haunt him later on.
It might. But for now, you've got the Italian political landscape in chaos.
Yeah.
And a certain media mogul is seeing an opportunity.
The stage is set for Berlusconi's grand entrance.
It really is. All right, so the Tangentopoli scandals have rocked Italy.
Right.
You've got the old political order kind of crumbling.
Yeah, it was wide open.
And Berlusconi, with his media empire,
Exactly.
his knack for connecting with the public.
He was a master communicator.
He sees an opening, and I guess he just jumps right in.
He does. 1993, he makes his famous discesa in campo.
The descent into the field.
That's right, the descent into the field. He launches Forza Italia, a new center-right political party.
Forza Italia.
Positioning himself as kind of the champion of those disillusioned by the corruption scandals.
So he's like, you can't trust the old guard, but you can trust me.
Exactly. He was really good at tapping into that sentiment.
Using his media savvy, basically, to create a whole new political movement.
It was a brilliant move.
He's kind of incredible when you think about it. It really blurred the lines between media, business, and politics.
Yeah, and it worked. He wins that first election in 1994.
He did.
Becomes prime minister.
That's right.
Although that first term was short-lived.
Yeah, it was.
He comes back even stronger in 2001, leading that Casa della Libertà coalition to victory.
It was a remarkable comeback.
It really was. And that 2001 campaign,
Yeah.
This is when we see like another example of Berlusconi's mastery of like political theater.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you remember the contratto con gli italiani, the contract with the Italians?
Oh, yeah. He literally signed a contract on live TV.
Like, who does that?
It was pure showmanship.
Promising tax cuts, job creation, reduced crime, all these things that the Italian people wanted to hear.
He knew what they wanted.
Yeah, but did he actually deliver?
Well, the results are a bit mixed.
Yes.
Some argue that he implemented significant economic reforms,
Okay.
while others say that he favored his own businesses and cronies.
Of course.
But regardless of the actual outcomes, the contract itself demonstrated his deep understanding of the Italian psyche.
So it's all about connecting with the public on like an emotional level?
Exactly. He knew how to do that better than almost anyone.
It's like he was a salesman, but on a national scale.
I think that's a really apt comparison.
And it's interesting because his political ambitions weren't limited to just Italy, right? I mean, he held the EU presidency in 2003 and was pretty close with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, he was really cultivating influence on a global stage.
So it's like his media empire and political power were really coming together.
It's all connected.
He had a platform unlike any other European leader, and it feels like he used it.
He did.
To shape public opinion both at home and abroad.
It was very effective.
But of course, we can't talk about Berlusconi without talking about the controversies.
No, we can't.
There were so many scandals, it's kind of hard to know where to even begin.
Well, let's start with the questions surrounding the origins of his wealth.
Okay.
You remember Banca Rossini, the bank that gave him that early loan for his construction business? There were allegations of links to the mafia, suggesting that maybe his early success wasn't entirely built on merit.
So maybe some shady dealings from the very beginning.
It's hard to say for sure, but the questions are there.
Yeah, and then there's those huge capital increases in his companies during the 60s and 70s.
Right.
Where did all that money come from?
It's not entirely clear.
Like it was all very sudden and unexplained.
Some people suggest that those funds might not have been totally legitimate.
It all just raises questions about whether he was really playing by the rules.
He does. And then, of course, there's his membership in the P2 Masonic Lodge.
The P2 Masonic Lodge.
This secret organization with alleged ties to all sorts of financial and political scandals.
It's like a shadowy group with a lot of power.
Exactly.
His involvement with them doesn't really help. His image does it.
Not really. And on top of all that,
There's more.
there are the direct accusations of his own involvement with the mafia, specifically through his hiring of Vittorio Mangano,
Vittorio Mangano.
a man with known mafia ties.
Berlusconi always denied those accusations, of course.
He did.
But the fact that he had someone like that on his payroll,
Right.
it raises questions.
It feeds into this narrative that perhaps he wasn't afraid to get his hands a little dirty
Right.
in order to get ahead.
So we've got the questions about his business practices.
Yeah.
But what about his use of media? I mean, didn't he also face accusations of trying to silence critical voices?
Absolutely. The Edito Bulgaro is a prime example.
Tell me about that.
He basically publicly called for the firing of journalists that were critical of him on state television.
So a pretty direct attack on freedom of the press.
It was.
It's kind of scary how much power he seemed to have over the media.
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And it's not limited to just that one incident.
Oh, really?
There's also the Agostino Sacca case, where Berlusconi was actually accused of bribery and influencing hiring decisions within RAI, the public broadcaster.
So using his influence to manipulate the media?
That's the accusation.
To benefit himself.
It definitely raises concerns about how he used his power.
So we're seeing a pattern here.
What's that?
Potential shady business dealings.
Yeah.
Questionable associations' attempts to control the media narrative.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to take in. And we haven't even gotten to his personal life.
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole other chapter.
Buckle up.
It's about to get messy.
His personal scandals are just as captivating
And controversial
as his political and business dealings.
So we've talked about his rise in business and politics, but his personal life was rarely out of the headlines, was it?
It really wasn't. Often just as dramatic and controversial as his political career.
And it seems like it all started to really unravel with his relationship with Noemi Letizia.
Noemi Letizia.
You know, that young woman that he referred to as the daughter of a friend?
Right.
Which I don't think sat very well with his wife, Veronica Lario.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
Yeah.
She publicly condemned his behavior, even accused him of frequenting minors.
And that ultimately led to their divorce.
And then, of course, the photos that came out from those bunga bunga parties at his Villa Certosa estate.
The Certosa.
Images of, scantily clad young women partying with the Prime Minister of Italy.
It was a scandal that captivated the Italian public.
It was shocking to many.
It raised a lot of questions about his judgment and his fitness for office.
And then, of course, there was the Patrizia Daddario scandal.
Patrizia Daddario.
And the leaked audio recordings of their encounters. It It really was. It was like an Italian soap opera.
It provided a glimpse into a side of Berlusconi that a lot of people found distasteful.
For sure. But I guess beyond those kind of salacious details, it fueled those accusations of impropriety and abuse of power.
It did.
Yeah. And then there's the Ruby Rubicori case involving the allegations of paying for sex with an underage nightclub dancer.
Yeah. While he was ultimately acquitted,
that
case definitely left a stain on his reputation. It did. And the court even acknowledged that, he had hosted parties with young women.
It did.
And that he had sexual relations with Ruby.
Right.
But they couldn't conclusively prove that he knew she was a minor at the time.
That was the sticking point.
Right. But the details of the case, it just raises concerns about his conduct. It's like his personal life was constantly intersecting with his political career.
Yeah.
Creating this whirlwind of controversy.
And it wasn't just the scandals either.
Right. He was known for making some pretty provocative statements. When he talked about the superiority of Western civilization, those comments, they caused a major diplomatic row.
Right. They really offended a lot of people in the Muslim world.
I can imagine.
And they were seen as very insensitive and culturally tone deaf.
And then there was that comment about the Chinese boiling babies for fertilizer. How do you even...
I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that.
It's bizarre.
It was definitely a low point in his diplomatic career.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Hard to imagine any other world leader making such an offensive statement.
So we've got scandals, we've got these controversial remarks.
We do.
We've got the alleged mafia ties.
Right.
And yet he stayed in power for so long. How?
It's a question that has baffled a lot of observers.
I can imagine.
But it speaks to his resilience, his charisma.
Yeah.
And his uncanny ability to connect with a certain segment of the Italian population.
He was a master of manipulating the media.
He was.
Knew how to control the narrative and spin things in his favor.
Right. He understood the power of image.
Yeah.
And was incredibly skilled at crafting this persona that resonated with his supporters.
And they saw him as like a strong leader.
Yeah.
A successful businessman.
A self-made man.
Someone who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo.
Exactly. But of course, his critics...
They saw him as a threat to democracy.
They did.
Right. A symbol of corruption.
Yeah. He's a very polarizing figure.
Yeah. It's hard to find anyone who's neutral about him.
It is.
So how do we even begin to sum up a figure like Silvio Berlusconi?
It's a tough question.
What's his legacy?
That's a question that's going to be debated for many years to come.
I think you're right.
I mean, he was undoubtedly a transformative figure in Italian history.
In so many ways.
He reshaped the media landscape,
Yeah.
left his mark on politics,
He really did.
and pushed social boundaries.
But he also leaves behind this legacy of scandal and controversy.
Yeah, and a lot of questions about the long-term impact of his actions.
That's true. I guess whether you admire his achievements or condemn his excesses,
Yeah,
there's just no denying that he made a mark on Italy.
he did. But what that ultimately means,
Yeah.
I'll leave that to you, the listener, to decide.
It's been a wild ride exploring the life and times of Silvio Berlusconi.
It really has.
One of the most fascinating and controversial figures of our time.
For sure.
And I think we've only just scratched the surface.
That's the nature of a deep dive.
But for now,
We'll have to leave it there.
I think that's all the time we have for today.
Yeah.
But if you're intrigued by what you've heard,
By all means,
keep exploring.
there's a wealth of information out there.
So, until next time, keep diving deep.